Hello everyone, welcome to another Modern Horizons 3 video. This time it's gonna be about Pauper, one of my favorite formats. There's so many good commons in this set. I think the most significant one is Cranial Ram. Cranial Ram is probably gonna be pre-banned. I saw some talk on Twitter and there's a tournament that's happening in Pisa in about 2 weeks, Paupergeddon, and it's I think it's better to start with this card not being in the format because it's so powerful. Like, people will either be on an Affinity deck or they will be playing a deck that beats that Affinity deck. And yeah, it's more interesting if it's not all about that. So the first deck we have is Green White Bogles. The new card from the set that I'm trying is Nyxborn Hydra. I think this card is an upgrade over Anchor and it utilizes better the ramping aspects of your deck, Utopia Sprawl, and in this build I'm running Wild Growth. So you can bestow your creature and just try to get the trample and the power and toughness increase, or you can play this as a creature. Sometimes you don't even need to have a hexproof on board, especially post board, or in some matchups that they don't have much removal, or the removal has like limited rates, and this is a very important option to have, since sometimes you're just gonna have like so much mana and you don't know what to do with it. And rather than just like playing a Rancor, you can play this as a single creature, or you can equip for a lot more mana. Spirited Companion also kind of fits this new build, since you can get the enchantment count and then you have some edict protection, or you can just like start equipping this or bestowing this. It's like less risk because even if they kill it in response, then you still get the Hydra and then you start equipping that creature. So I think this build has potential. Okay, next up we have Red Green Ponza. So the problem this deck had in the past is on the draw it's a lot weaker because you can't use like the Thermocast effects as effectively, and you have some like cards like Scred, which are either great, but sometimes you just like miss your curve and you can't do anything with it. So what I'm trying to do is have a more consistent plan. The card that allows us to do it is Colossal Dreadmask. So yeah, maybe this is too expensive. It's like 6 mana for a 6/6 with trample, but opponent has to kill it at some point, and when they do, you have all this like spare mana. The game state just leads naturally to that direction, so then you can equip a smaller thing and make that a win condition. So speaking of smaller things, like the Germ is a black creature, it's a 0/0, and then you have the 0/1s from Eldrazi's. I'm running 2 new common Eldrazi cards. Eldrazi Repurposer, when you cast a spell and when Eldrazi Repurposer dies, create a 1/1 colorless spawn creature. So this is on cast, by the way, doesn't get countered. And then you have Rething Chrysalis, which is a similar effect. When you cast a spell, create 2 colorless Eldrazi spawn tokens. And it has rates, and whenever you sacrifice another Eldrazi, you put a 1/1 counter on this card. This can become bigger and taxed as a win con, and you can use the 0/1s to either ramp to your more expensive spells, like the Cascade cards, or you can start equipping those 0/1s and to make them actual threats with Colossal Dreadmask. Up next we have Blue Black Fae. This is a build of mine that's in between the Dimir Serpent deck and the Blue Black Fairy deck. I'm running a little bit of both because I still need the engine of like milling yourself. You can play your Gurmaghalir for 1 mana, but the new card that I'm trying is Sneaky Snacker, which means you will mill them sometimes by doing Brainstorm and Thought Scouring yourself, and it reads, when you draw your 3rd card in a turn, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So that's another win con you can have in the deck. Other than that, you just play defense, you play the classic controlled game. You can also like draw cards with Hacker and then discard them if it ever hits a second time, and then you can get it back from the graveyard in these like prolonged games. I think this is worth a try. Okay, up next we have Black White Affinity. So this is a deck I created a while ago. I think I won a challenge with it. I'm not entirely sure. So in this build I had all that glitters along with Ornithopter and Springleaf Drum. Since all that glitters is now banned, I don't think there's a very good reason to go into that, like Ornithopter and Springleaf Drum. But I would rather just play a more classical Affinity build. Since we now have Refurbished Familiar, this card is very powerful. It has Affinity for artifacts, flying, and it says when it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. This is a great card to return with Glinthawk and Skyfisher, replay it and do this effect all over again. And also, like, you have all the Affinity for artifacts, so sometimes you have very quick starts, like you just start with an Affinity land and a star, and then you play like another land and a 2-drop, and then you just dump your entire hand. So you have like these lucky wins, but there's also ways you can grind very, very well with your draw spells, or with like returning Wellsprings and replaying them, or just like making your opponent sacrifice a creature, and then you can replay this removal until they're out of creatures. Like, this deck I think is very powerful because of Refurbished Familiar. It's exactly what was missing. And finally we have Mono Blue Delver. This is a deck that has risen in popularity lately because of its good Grixis Affinity matchup. This deck used to run Boomerang, and I think the upgrade over Boomerang is Dim Inferior. Dim Inferior is a better removal card. It says it can cost 1 less for each card you draw on its turn. So it can even cost 1 mana. For example, doing Brainstorm and then playing Dim Inferior like immediately puts it to 1 mana cost, and you target 1 non-permanent, and your opponent puts it on like second from the top or on the bottom. If it's something that's you're really worried about, you can even like Thought Scour your opponent and they completely get rid of the card. I think this will push the deck very, very well, because the weakness of Mono Blue has always been removal. It pretty much has everything else except removal, and this is very, very close to a real one. A few other cards in the set are Cursed Marauder. It's an alternative to Chainer's Edict. It bypasses tokens, so it's interesting against something like Bogles that tries to create a 1/1 with Cartouche, and then you play this card and skip it. Other cards are Skoa Embermaids. It's a 6-drop. In Pauper, we don't have many good expensive payoffs. I think this is kind of okay. It deals 4 damage to any target on ETB, and you can discard multiples and sacrifice mountains to deal 4 damage to any target. So threatens to finish the game in a way. And then Siege Mass is probably a sideboard option. It has split second, so you can bypass counterspell, and you can either like destroy an artifact or give a creature +3/+2 and trample. Very relevant in mono red, kind of holds this effect. The last thing I want to mention is the new land cycle. These lands are upgrades over Evolving Wilds, and while you can still fetch your basic, you can also cycle them, and most importantly, you can tap them for colorless mana. This is a very big upgrade in Pauper overall, and there are so many decks that can include them, but they won't create any new archetypes. Okay, thanks for watching everybody, and see you next time.